For more than a decade, thousands of comedians have made their appearances on Kill Tony, but only 16 of them have been good enough to be deemed a Kill Tony regular, a job that has them perform on the show each and every week, changing their comedy careers forever. But who are these 16 comedians? What's been their biggest impact on Kill Tony, and how do they rank against each other? Well, let's answer those questions as we learn about and rank all 16 Kill Tony regulars. Starting with one of the newest regulars, the Estonian assassin Ari Matti, who made his debut in episode 642.
People always ask you stupid questions when you're from Estonia. The one I get the most is it part of Russia? And now for the past year I've had to be like, we'll see. I mean, if Russia does decide to attack us next, I hope it's in the next 2 weeks, because I am here. Estonia, never heard of it. Go, Cowboys!
Now, Ari's an extremely rare case of not being pulled from the bucket, because Adam Egget would actually be the one to tell Tony about the Estonian assassin who had been crushing at the mothership. And after only one appearance, Ari would become a new regular, but once again in a very unusual way. See, we wouldn't see Ari until episode 669, where he'd be introduced as a new rotating regular, apparently all because he had been killing on all the other shows in the mothership. And since becoming a regular, Ari has quickly become a massive part of the show, going on to appear 12 more times so far, 2 of which being back-to-back sold-out shows in Madison Square Garden, and he's already leaving us with some iconic moments like this.
Nina, get in here.
Whoa! Now, Ari's biggest impact has been his ability to step into a regular role and consistently kill every week, especially now in a time where the show is bigger than ever. And while Ari will no doubtedly be an S tier if he keeps this up, he's only been around for a few months, so let's place him in a respectable A tier. But while Ari's only been around for a short amount of time, this next regular has been around since the show was originally called Hinchcliffe's Notes. Of course, I'm talking about Kim Congdon, who might have had the strangest first appearance ever on episode number 5.
Sure, if you want to, or you can lower it.
Look at that.
Yeah, got it. All right. Is it working?
Yes. Is this thing on?
What's up?
Welcome.
Thank you.
How do you feel about being part of a live podcast and a show?
This is cool. This is awesome.
Somehow, after just her first time doing comedy, they had announced that she'd be closing out every single show from now on, officially making her the second ever regular. And for the next 105 episodes, that's exactly what she would do, as she grew and evolved with the show. And all these years later, Kim's a legit comedian who was literally forged from her time on Kill Tony, proving that the show could literally take somebody who has never done comedy before and turn them into a real comedian. But as regulars go, I'm gonna have to be honest and just put Kim in C tier. If you go back and rewatch most of these early sets, I think you'll get why. Somebody who is definitely not C tier though is our next regular, who was pulled from the bucket and made their debut on episode 612.
Make some noise for Kam Patterson. Guys, you have to make noise. It's Kam Patterson's first time on the show.
Because at my house, I had 3 roaches. They'd be on their side of the room, I'd be on my side of the room. We'd have a good night. Wouldn't bother each other. But I brought a girl over one time, and there was 72 roaches in my room doing TikToks and shit. They were making podcasts, nigga.
Kam would have the set of the night and be invited to do a theater show with Tony in Florida. But Tony would also say something unusual in the interview that's foreshadowed Kam's career so far.
That shit weird.
You're a star. I've seen this before. Kam Patterson's a star.
And in only his second ever appearance on the 10th anniversary show, Kam would officially be given his regularship. And in that same show, he'd also have a viral moment that changed his comedy career forever.
Big one. What's something you think we should know about you as we get to know you? What do you think, 3,000 people in front of you? What's something interesting about you?
I'm not retarded, but I like rocks.
Now, Now, since becoming a regular, he'd perform on most of the shows since episode 616. He's appeared as a guest 3 times and is now being introduced as one of the top young rising comedians in the world, which leads us to his biggest impact on the show, which is he might just be the biggest star so far to come out of the Kill Tony pipeline. So, love or hate Kam, you can't deny the impact he's had in a very short amount of time, which I think deservingly lands him in S tier. So while Kam's a young buck on the scene, this next regular laid the groundwork for guys like Kam to come up and do their thing. And when he got pulled from the bucket on episode 298, well, he came up and he did his thing.
And getting an uninterrupted 60 seconds goes by the name of David Lucas. Here we go.
I knew I was from the hood because my mom bought us the hood version of Monopoly. And every space on Monopoly was go to jail. In hood Monopoly, you start off with a light bill in your name, you know what I'm saying? Like, damn, I just started playing. How the fuck I owe $1,200 already?
Now, David wouldn't get pulled until nearly 100 episodes later, on episode 390, where he'd pick up right where he left off, and the birth of his roast battles with Tony would be born.
Favorite type of ice cream?
Look at Tony looking like a nigga that Michael Jackson touched.
Oh shit, here we go. You get one of these.
Tony, we can do this all day, man.
Oh shit, don't you start with me. All right.
And just 2 months later, on episode 399, David would officially be introduced as a new Kill Tony regular, and the rest has been history. He's went on to perform 140 more times, appeared as a guest 5 times, and is one of the few people to ever be inducted into the Kill Tony Hall of Fame. But his biggest impact has to be literally introducing an entire roasting segment of the show that has made for some of the funniest moments in the show's history. And there's no way I'm putting a Hall of Fame regular in anything but S tier. But while David is very well known, this next regular is a little less so after making her debut all the way back on episode 107. And her introduction as a regular 10 weeks later on episode 117 is literally legendary.
Known for her self-deprecating comedy, also known for her mediocre impression of Sara Weinshenk. She is the 19-year-old Ellie Barely Legal Macofsky!
She'd actually perform as a regular 8 more times after this before the Comedy Store cracked down and wouldn't let her in until she turned 21. So patiently waiting, Allie would return on her 21st birthday and perform every week for the next year and a half, until episode number 246, her last official episode as a regular. I think her impact is pretty similar to Kim's, a young comic who grew and evolved with the show. However, unlike Kim, Allie's comedy was definitely better at the time, which I think lands her in B tier. But our next regular might just be the complete opposite of monotone Macofsky. In fact, he might be the complete opposite of nearly every comedian on this entire list, because he is truly one of a kind.
Whoa, this is wild.
Oh, fuck yeah.
This is a really big deal, everybody. This young man is one of our favorite local comedians. He's never been on this show before. He's completely overqualified for this. Let's see how it goes. Make some noise for Austin's own Casey Rocket, everybody. Holy shit.
And in his second ever appearance on episode 603, Tony would let Casey go for nearly 5 minutes because he was doing things like this.
Is up here riffing our hearts out, boys. Come on now. I won't lie to you folks, I got 6 more harmonicas hidden around the room here tonight. In 6 minutes, the room will start filling with water. You have 6 minutes to find the remaining harmonicas.
Now, what's special about Casey's regularship is that it was earned offstage. Taking the Austin comedy scene by storm, Tony would continue to keep a close eye on Casey as he continued to crush at the mothership for months. And when Casey finally appeared on Kill Tony again on episode 652, he was introduced to us as a regular, and the rest has been history. Since then, he's appeared on the show nearly 20 more times and has quickly become a fan favorite, with his impact on the show being able to step into a regular role when fans were craving some sort of switch up from the current rotation. And I think Casey's very similar to Ari, where he's undoubtedly S tier if he keeps this up, but since he's only been around a little bit, we've got to place him in A tier. And while the story of Casey Rocket is just getting started, our next regular who's pulled out of the bucket on episode 418, Michael Lehrer's story has unfortunately come to an end.
I've been working in comedy for like 20 years, but I got ALS and I took 3 years off, but I've been back for 5 months.
Hell yeah, dude. Fuck yeah. Very cool.
Michael would officially be given his regularship on episode 424 and would write and perform a new minute for the next 2 years. But as time went on, his ALS slowly worsened, until finally it reached a point on episode 589, Michael's final appearance, where it became difficult to even understand him. Just a month after his last appearance, he would make a trip over to Oregon and participate in an assisted death, officially passing away on January 17th, 2023. And in my mind, Michael's biggest impact on the show was embodying what Kill Tony's all about. No matter who you are or what you're going through, if you're funny, there's always a place for you on the show. And for that, I'm not putting Michael any lower than a B tier. So while Michael's time on the show has come and gone, our next regular seems to be here to stay, no matter how many times fans have tried to get rid of him.
And Kim? And Kim.
Hey guys. It's good to be here. I don't like carpool lanes. I feel like carpool lanes is like society saying, hey, you know how you're lonely? Yeah, do it for longer now. Take the long way home. Think about it.
After Han's debut on episode 177, he wouldn't be seen or heard from again for another 4.5 years. That is until episode 510, where Hans would be pulled from the bucket once again.
Those chicken. They're like, Hans, isn't General Tso just a shitty Americanized version of something authentically Asian? And I'm like, yeah, but so am I.
And with David Lucas and Michael Lehrer taking a break from the show, it would open up the perfect opportunity for Hansi Boy to secure his regularship. And the rest has been history. As most of you already know, Hans has been the featured regular for the past 2.5 years, and is probably one of the most controversial regulars on this list. But despite fans wanting him off the show, saying his jokes are repetitive and he's no longer funny, Hans has remained a regular time and time again, proving that more people love him than hate him. But I think what people forget is that before Hans, the regulars had been the same for years, and his addition to the show was a huge deal at the time, and it came with a lot of pressure for him to be great. And while most of you will probably hate whatever tier I decide to put him in, I mean, Hans a Hall of Famer, he's undefeated in battles for regularship, and in my mind, I mean, that's S tier worthy. But who's certainly not S tier material, at least not yet, is Drew Nickens, who single-handedly had the most insane debut in Kill Tony history.
You ever, when you've been in Austin, Texas, you ever give a girl a kiss?
No.
You haven't had an Austin kiss yet? I'm kidding. This is about to be one of the greatest moments. I'm calling it right now. This,
Take a breath,
is Drew's first Austin kiss with a fucking 10 from Austin, Texas.
And then he'd follow that up with coming back out on stage and doing 3 more sets that same episode, getting a standing ovation each and every time. Literally something we've never seen before and we're probably never gonna see again. So Drew would be made a regular a month later on episode 669, and since then, usually only performs after a bucket pull absolutely bombs. So while Drew has a lot of potential to be a great comic, I think he still has a long ways to go. And while I like Drew, I do need to be fair. I mean, he's getting ranked against some of Kill Tony's best. So for right now, Drew drops down to a D tier. But our next regular, who's sometimes known as the Denver Dracula, the Vanilla Gorilla, the Memphis Strangler, the Big Red Machine, made his debut on episode 296 and instantly made a great impression on Tony.
I just spent $30 fucking on the ecstasy. The least you can do is buy the movie tickets.
It's an impression of my uncle in '94 before we went to go see the movie Twister.
Well, Holy fucking shit, William Montgomery. Every time I've ever seen you or talked with you, you've always somehow wildly impressed me.
Just to prove how much Tony loved William in the earliest days, William would appear as a guest just 4 weeks later. And 3 months after that, on episode 317, he'd officially be deemed a regular. Now since then, we know what's become of the Big Red Machine. He's gone on to perform the most sets in the show's history with 285 and counting, and has appeared as a guest a staggering 12 times. He's a Kill Tony Hall of Famer, and his impact on the show is absolutely undeniable. I'm not even gonna stutter on this one. The Tijuana Tarantula is S tier. Now, who's definitely not S tier though is our next regular, who's had the shortest stint of any regular in the show's history, and that is Ellis Aych, who made his electric debut on episode 531.
Yeah, it's because I used to eat and drink food really fucking fast. My mom was like, God damn, boy, you got a deep throat. And that's the name, that's where the name stuck. Homeboy put me aside and said, hey man, you know Rachel? I said, yeah, I know Rachel. He said, bro, she got a deep throat. I said, shit, me too. Yeah, my daddy said I got a real deep throat. He said, yo, daddy. I'm like, well, it's my mama who started it, but hey, are we playing basketball or not?
This would make his regular debut on episode 542, but would struggle to build off the momentum he had in his first appearance. And one of his biggest downfalls was not being great at taking jokes and not being that entertaining during his interviews.
I'm not missing this Monday. So, hey, anybody live in the Spicewood or Anderson Steck Avenue area? Make some noise.
Why is he breaking the fourth wall, dude?
Yeah,
what the fuck?
why
are you doing this?
Nobody needs to make noise. Just do the joke that you would do if the whole place went crazy.
You're right.
Yeah.
So just a few weeks later, on episode 564, Ellis would make his last appearance and hasn't been seen since. Just like Ellis's time on the show, we'll make this quick, and we're gonna send him off to D tier with Drew. And continuing the theme of sudden disappearances, we move on to by far the most beautiful regular that has ever been on the show, who made her debut on episode 126.
I've never physically seen somebody so hot.
Vanessa would officially become a regular on episode 135 and would go on to perform every week for the next year. But she'd suddenly decide to never come back on the show after episode 189. Most people believe it's because she decided to pursue a corporate job and drop comedy. But Vanessa is a perfect example of a comedian who might have stopped just a little bit too early. Because if she decided to come back now, she would probably take the show by storm. So even after performing on 45 episodes and she was getting better each week, I'm gonna have to put Vanessa in C tier, just because I don't think she made the most out of her opportunity. And another regular who didn't make the most out of their opportunity is our next regular, Malcom Hatchett, who was instantly loved from the first time he stepped on stage on episode 252. Just 4 weeks later, Malcom would become the first ever male regular on the show and was opening up for Tony on his countrywide tour. For the next 8 months, Malcom was one of the most liked comedians on the show, but things took a strange turn when he disappeared for 5 months after getting his jaw broken in a brawl. Malcom would never be the same though. He'd take another long break and make one final appearance on episode 390 and hasn't been seen since. Some fans think that the pressure of being a regular was just too much for Malcom, but almost everyone who saw him can agree he is one of the most likable regulars to ever appear on the show. And his charm must have worked on me too, because I'm somehow putting him in B tier. Sara Mostajabi, however, our next regular, wasn't necessarily a fan favorite, but she did make her debut in the first ever episode of Kill Tony and returned as a regular on episode number 2. She would appear every week until episode number 25 and then be phased out of her regularship, mostly because she just wasn't that great at comedy.
And it's like you see this tiny little hole of fucking opportunity and you just try and shove your fucking happiness into it, and then when you are successful, you have about 3 minutes of deliciousness, and then it's over and you're left with a piece of trash.
And while Sara was technically the first ever regular, that is gonna be just enough to keep her out of F tier and barely put her in D tier. But from one Sara to another, we now move on to our second to last regular, Sara Weinshenk, who made her debut on episode 16 and was officially made a regular on episode number 24. She would appear on nearly every episode for the next 2 years, and in her last episode, she'd have one last memorable introduction.
Alley of LA, also from the Kill Tony podcast, Dysentery, and Tuesday Snacks. She has graced this very stage talking about corn on the cob holder thingies, briefcases, and pens with erasers. Ladies and gentlemen, it's Sara Princess Shank
Wow. Just wasn't expecting such a grand intro, but we adjust.
Similar to Congdon, Sara would grow and evolve with Kill Tony, proving that the show could truly develop real comedians from scratch. And for that, she gets put with Kim in C tier. And last, and honestly maybe least, we move on to our last regular, Melissa Eslinger, who would make her debut on episode 109 and became notorious for how nervous she was when she got on stage. She'd become a regular on episode 117 and would do a new minute for the next 8 months. But like some of the other regulars on this list, she was a project that just didn't really work out, despite how hard Tony and Red Band tried. I know we don't have a single F tier, but it just feels wrong to put a Kill Tony regular in F. So Melissa is just gonna barely skate by, and she's gonna get put in D tier. And that is every regular and their biggest impact that they've had on Kill Tony. I'm sure some of you won't love my rankings, but I tried my best, and I want to know which regular you'd most want to see the return of. I might be a bit of a simp, but Vanessa Johnston, get back on Kill Tony.